here to discuss something about the cusp, the confluence, and the divergence of science as well as spirituality. I think every time, so there is science and there is philosophy. Whenever they have converged, or whenever people have not taken them as separate things, that has led to a era of a lot of prosperity. Spiritual studies have the same amount of magnetism and the same amount of thrill which is there in a spy. The second thing, I think it is a useful framework which my Guruji, Prabhanjanacharya, gave. He said, read everything in the Shastras with an assumption that it is wrong.
Oh,
It was we took a few minutes to digest this because we've always thought that the Shastras.
I don't know from where the concept of infinity had caught on to me. And I will spend a lot of time thinking about both in space and time. And as a science student, when you look at its imagination into scientific boundaries, what you do. End of the day, the intent that you're talking about, no matter which matter, whether it's a politics, whether it's a science, whether it's a corporate, I think the intent that you have inside, it manifests everywhere, whatever you're going to do that.
Namaste, Acharya Pavanosmakam, Acharyani cha Bharati, Devo Narayana Shishaha, Devi Mangala Devata. Welcome to all of you to the Ataha Madhwacharya for the Youth Thoughtcast series. Over the last 20 years, Ataha Madhwacharya for the Youth has bringing content which is relevant to the current day youth, which helps them deal and cope with their day-to-day challenges as well as make use of the opportunities that this world has to offer them. The path that we would highly recommend would be that of spirituality and the lessons that we can learn from our scriptures, our Puranas, to come into our lives in a more meaningful manner, in a more considered manner. So today we are here to discuss something about the cusp, the confluence, and the divergence of science as well as spirituality. We've always viewed these two areas as being separate, with some areas that we also see some convergence. And we have someone with us who's been a technology leader. So we have Rakesh Misra, who is a graduate from the Indian Institute of Technology, Kanpur, IIT Kanpur. He is a metallurgist from there. From then, he spent a very long career as a technology leader with the technology major Infosys Technologies. After that, he spent about 15 years in mentoring technologists and being someone who guides startups in their journeys as they grow from being startups to unicorns and further from there. So this is Rakesh Misra. Welcome, Rakesh, to our show. Very kind of you to have made time.
My pleasure.
So apart from all this, of course, Rakesh and I have been good friends. We've had long discussions on the topic of both spirituality and science. But before we get into that topic, your own journey has been very interesting. So would you like to share your journey from being a student and then of science and technology on one hand and then into spirituality?
Thank you, Sundar. Thank you. This is indeed a very good opportunity to get into deep dive into a topic which has been very, very favorite topic for me. And when you talk about journey, Sundar, it is very interesting way. And I'm sure there are many people who would have very similar experience. For me, the spirituality, so my journey did not start with any formal introduction to spirituality. I think I would have been probably in 7th grade or 8th grade. I don't know from where the concept of infinity had caught on to me. And I will spend a lot of time thinking about both in space and time. And as a science student, when you look at its imagination into scientific boundaries, what you do. And I'll spend a lot of time thinking about really this concept which I can't put my hands around. I say, when you look at space, you don't know which limit to which limit you will go. Time, you don't know past how, where, and the future where. You can't put your arms around it. And you can imagine in a 7th grade and an 8th grade for a child, having absolutely no guidance, having absolutely no idea of really the world where beyond that thing. That concept from a curiosity become very scary actually. I remember countless nights when I'm thinking about these topics, not able to sleep. And I know my father cannot guide me into that. My teacher cannot guide me into that. There's no guru who can help me into that. That is the point where some point in time I started looking for answers, saying, where is the answer? Where it could have been? So I started looking into formal literatures, that how do they define? And at that age, any child, for them to understand literature, Vedas, you can understand. It's like not a practical thing where to do that. And for me, it was not very easy to do. So the journey that began from there, where I accidentally started, and this is where I believe that when you start looking for answers, universe will find path for you. See, you may have your own mechanism how you want to do that, but what universe will do, it will create scenarios, it will bring people to you, it will bring books to you, it will bring multiple things to you, which will open up ideas. And that's what started happening with me. I'll find some book and I'll look at many books, but suddenly it will be one or two books will be there for no good reason. I just feel like in a library, I should read this. I'll go open up the page, start looking into that. And from that, essentially, I started getting more deeper into all the ancient masters. And this is the one thing I have done in my early days of exploration, to start reading these masters. One thing I noticed, that at least I have been very fortunate, that when I start reading written by somebody, and the connection, when I get it, I'm able to very easily find out what connects to me as a meaningful thing versus where something which is not really having a truth. So I could see that when I'm reading into the books about journeys of various masters, and then look at their teachings, look at how they are describing what we say truth, we say. You're looking for answers, how are they describing? And spent years at that, I think from 8th, 9th, 10th, all these greats, various different books, wherever I could get my hands on, all Himalayan masters and Ramana Maharshi, and a lot of you'll find gurus who are there, let's say in the Punjab regions, who have written books about it. I went through all of that, and I'm looking for answers. I'm seeing what concept are they describing, what is the basic tenets of that. This is where I started building connections, connecting the dots. And one thing I did realize, that yes, the way most of these masters describe, there are going to be at the outer end difference, because the language, because of their culture. You will see north and south, a lot of difference in terms of same concept will be described. But what amazed me, that behind the scene, all of it, certain things are there, what we look at as the basic principles of spirituality, they're all exactly the same. They're all talking about similar kind of things, similar type of, but it is all wrapped into cultural expression of the way the teachers are describing. And this is where my lights went on. I started feeling, look, this is something I don't know fully, but I am able to connect to that. So I read more and more. Then I started also attending to, and thankfully with over time, technology has evolved. So you have audios, you have the videos. In our time when we were kids, all we had books. That's the only thing we had it. So it started with the books, but then over a period of time, started looking into some of the recorded videos and then start understanding the teachings. When I'm going to one institution to other institutions, I mean, there are a number of institutions, I don't want to name them, but I digged into and started looking into what are they teaching people from a spirituality standpoint. I did realize that majority of the institutions we are getting into, there is a part of spirituality, but there is also part of ritual. There is a hard ritual they are taking into. Some are there on a little extreme side of getting onto ritual, some of them taking as a moderate, and some of them, I think, take a little pinch of salt, they are doing ritual what is needed. So that is the second part where I started in spirituality to find this diversion or this difference, ritual versus really the ultimate truth view of the spirituality. And I spent some time trying to understand when people are doing rituals, following those kind of practices, what has that got to do with the spirituality or truth or our existence, how we are needed? And again, started developing understanding. Over a period of time, one thing which in my perspective I have built very deep is to filter out really the ultimate perspective of truth, how we want to get from everything else that dilutes it,
right,
or creates some sort of a diversion in our mind. Now, many of those things are required to make life colorful, make our life more methodical, make our life a lot more systematic. But to be able to differentiate, yes, it is needed, but this should not dilute my perspective of spirituality. I think that milestone was very important milestone for me, because that allowed me to coexist with a lot of this which is existing. People are talking, I'm seeing, and not being disturbed by that. Still to be able to filter out what is truth or what is meaningful from there. So, and I remember in some of the early days, I used to have huge dilemma that whether you follow this guru, that guru. And I remember somebody whom I known very closely, whom I trust with kind of accomplishment and the type of, I would say, experiences the person has dealt into the other realms also. He told me very interesting fact. He said, look, all of these people, none of them are perfect. You will not have anybody perfect. But anybody whom you are reading about and you're doing, they will have pieces of truth in that what they are talking about. So don't worry about, don't be distracted by their outer view or outer impressions that you get it. Don't cast them into this is good, this is bad, because that will distract you from the mainstream. And that has been very helpful for me to be able to actually go wider into look at from various different sources, whether different gurus or different practices, people, and pick out what I think is connecting dot with me. And what I would say I've not been very good at to become a disciple with one particular institution or with, because that is something somehow has not been in my grain, to become very hardwired into one institution, because somehow as a spiritual practice, what got into me is about being free. I very strongly believe that if path I have to follow in spirituality, it is all about being free. So you cannot be a particular caste, you cannot be a particular person, individual, whatever. Those are different things existing with you. But if you want to understand spirituality, you have to become free. And that gave me a lot of peace of mind, because then I don't have to now worry about that to follow one kind of thing. So I say I could follow all of these and pick what I need from there and take my journey. And that path ultimately got me into realizing that I need to have my journey. See, I cannot take somebody else's journey and create that as a path. And hence have been experimenting with a lot of, I would say, practices which are important, I consider importance for us to be able to open our own doors to the spirituality. Because we want to go to truth. Going truth is a journey. That journey requires readiness. It requires preparation. And I think in my early days, now I can go and see, I made number of mistakes. I would have had all kind of other, as like any other human beings would have had challenges of my own life. But what has taken me from one challenge to other is about somewhere the anchoring into the truth. That is, and I think this is where I find the strength of the spirituality. So today when I am looking at, I don't think I would consider I have arrived anywhere or I have come to a journey place where I would consider that I know everything. But what has happened that in today's, my journey has a lot of stability today. My mind has a lot of stability to understand that where I am going with respect to spirituality, and it can coexist with everything else, with my technology, with my job, with my every other mundane thing, which I can enjoy equally without having to have that dilemma, and I can still pursue whether I look at as a truth.
Wonderful. So that you don't see them as at loggerheads with each other.
Today it is not.
There's a lot of harmony that you are seeing in all of this. Wonderful, wonderful.
So that has been my journey, Sundar. Now, I'm sure you would have had your own interesting journey in the spirituality. I have known you and we had some discussion, but I will take this opportunity to understand more deeply about how you got into spirituality and where do you see your journey going into spirituality, Sundar?
Oh, Rakesh, I think that's a very important thing. And I have a few follow-up questions to you as well, which I'll put to you. So my journey started with, of course, my parents. Both my father was in the Indian Air Force and my mother was a housewife. And both of them came from very traditional, South Indian Madhwa families. Both of them came from families which were very deeply rooted in the religious methods. Of course, we come from a family of officials. So the cusp of profession being something and your personal beliefs being something else, I think was very was there. But there's one other common thing was that both my grandfathers were people who were very interested in studies, philosophical studies. So that was also already a rarity, because people pursuing a certain profession, it was not thought that they will be able to spend time on studying, and listening to lectures.
Right.
So both of them did that. I think somewhere there, it sowed the seeds for the rest of the family to be like that, because then it just flowed. My uncles and my aunts, my mother, all of them are people who are voracious readers. So they can lap up a 1,000-page book in 2 months and understand everything to a lot of depth. So that was something which was very that came into the family. But the world in an Indian Air Force campus is very different. It is something which is it is first of all something which physically takes you away from the place. And in those days where connectivity was so poor, the only connection between us and our homeland of Bangalore was the letters that would come. But other than that, pretty much nothing. You might watch a cricket match being played in India on television, but that's about as close as you get to your hometown. So till about 18 years, there was just nothing that was bringing us here. But I think our parents had taught us certain basic principles of the Sanatana Dharma, teaching us prayers, teaching us a certain moral stroke ethical code of living, praying every day, and all this had just slowly started to come into our routine. And come 18 years, I think that was really the turning point of my life. I got admission into engineering college in RV College, Bangalore. And at the same time, the same day my course started, I visited a Raghavendra Swami temple near a house in Banashankari, second stage. And there my guru, Dr. Vyasanikare Prabhanjanacharya, he was starting his 4-year discourse on Mahabharata Tatparya Nirnaya, which is a commentary on the Mahabharata. This commentary is written by Srimad Madhwacharya. And I could not believe the coincidence that both of these schools started at the same time. So morning would be college and evenings would be attending this lecture. And he would come cover one chapter and then take a break and so on. And as luck would have it, exactly after 4 years of my completion of my engineering, this also got completed. But those 4 years, I think, took me very, very close to the topic of engineering. And I must say, I had some fantastic teachers in, they say that Guru, I think, was at his highest peak in my horoscope, because I got great gurus on both sides. Extremely committed professors who came from great institutions like the IIT, who taught us to love our subject. They probably, I don't remember everything that they taught me, but the love for science and engineering was there. And then you had the Mahabharata, which the story that unfolds, I think, 1 billion times, and yet is able to interest you as to what happened. And it was a very different journey, because my guru also comes from a background of engineering. He had pursued 4 years of engineering. Those days, it used to be 5 years. And then he had taken a spiritual path. So his analysis of everything would be very different from the way others would do it. So I think that is a big turning point. And from then on, a few false starts, again, thanks to transfers, etc. But again, many years later, I came back to Bangalore, and my pursuit of the studies of philosophy in a more regimented and a systematic manner started. In last 6-7 years has been a delight, learning from Prabhanjanacharya and my two gurus, Shrikantacharya Bayari and Dr. Srinidhi Pyati, from whom I'm learning the Upanishads right now. So it has been something which has been a very integral part of my work as well, where I think somewhere there, see, after all, your mind is one bucket. You cannot create silos there beyond a point. You might want to do it, but you can't. So this has had an impact on the way I work as a manager, work in my area of marketing. At the same time, it has been the other way round as well. So here we are, I think 20 years we've been running this initiative of Ataha, and I don't know what others have learned from me, but I can say that I have learned a lot from the great young minds with whom I get the privilege of interacting every time such a event happens. Now, we would really encourage all the viewers to drop their comments in the comment section. This is a YouTube video, so you can drop whatever are your how are your reflections, what have been some of your own experiences, and if there are questions that you have, you're also very, very free to differ from whatever is being discussed and express your departures from this as well. This is an open channel, and as long as we keep it open, I think it will only grow. That is what I've said. If you curb a plant, a bonsai can grow only so much.
True.
But the same tree can become a banyan tree as well.
True.
So one thing, Rakesh, I was curious about is that you mentioned about this thing about Ananta, right? Yes. The infinity,
yes.
right? And, if you look at our scriptures, they start with the definition of God as someone who is Deshataha, Kalataha, Ananta. So Gunataha, Ananta. That is another thing. But Desha means space, and Kala meaning time. And it's very cute. I'm so fascinated that you also, took up the same examples. And I think the other thing which struck me was this dispassionate view of philosophy and spirituality. You moved yourself away from, dogmas and structures and rigid frameworks which probably prevent in many ways you to think in a certain way. So you kept all your options open, and there is a great scholarly saint in the Dvaita sect by name Sri Vadiraja. His Vrindavan is there in this place called Sode. It's about 8 hours from Bangalore. It's a beautiful place. I think I'm sure many of the people amongst our participants have visited it, but if you haven't, you should go, because it's a beautiful biological, it's a botanical garden. Lovely. I would say, and it's a beautiful place with all the serenity that you can expect in a spiritual location. But he says a line which is called Nasnehanam Nacha Visnehanam. So he says, don't accept something because you like it and because it's your philosophy, or you are born into a certain family, or Nacha Visnehanam. You should not pursue one school of philosophy because you hate the other. So I think that Yavan Madhva Matodaya Ante Siddhanta Siddhantaha Madhvasyagama Evahi. So he has come to his own conclusion. He's saying, he says that I have studied all forms of philosophy and then I have come to my conclusion. So in each of my works, you can see that, and it's reflected. I've had the privilege of reading some of his works. It's very clearly thought about. True. So that is a little bit about me.
No, it's great, Sundar, and every time I talk to you, I always get to know this little extra. And now I actually see why you are so popular among youth and your teachings. It's wonderful. Coming to the topic today, I think what we have picked up, Sundar, science versus spirituality. Right? And I have spent huge amount of time. I remember I look back my old days, in college days, debating about science, spirituality. Every time I have seen we are debating, and when you know a little bit more, the debate changes, because all the assumptions, all the things you're using to debate, it changes. Before we actually delve deeper into that, I'm curious, what is your way of looking at what is science and what is spirituality? I mean, let's put certain boundary around it so that for rest of the definition, rest of the discussion, it will guide us to be in that frame. Help us understand what, according to you, what would you consider science and what would you consider spirituality?
Right. So first of all, Rakesh, I view this as a spectrum.
Okay.
So there is a certain jurisdiction, if I may say, that science has, and there is a certain jurisdiction spirituality has. Like I'm constantly reminded when we are driving on a highway and we are leaving or moving out of a town, they say that, this town municipality corporation thanks you, welcome again. And this is where our jurisdiction ends, right? And so that is where I think there is a realm of science, the way we have explained it, and there is a realm of the spiritual sciences which it deals with. And spirituality takes off from where science leaves it, right? So there is a clear demarcation that is there. And where I see is that science is evidence-based, given that it only accepts things that it can see. So there is something that you can see and observe and deduce. Whereas spirituality, I think, goes beyond that. So there are certain things that it can see. So there are 3 forms of proof that is accepted. So one of the things that Madhwacharya did was precisely this.
Okay.
He said, look, if we have to have any debate, the first thing which has to be clear is what is the framework of accepting something or not accepting something. That there has to be a convergence.
Correct.
You can't have two football teams playing two different set of rules.
Yes.
नहीं हम 15 लोगों के लेके आ जाएंगे, तुम्हारे पास 8 ही होने चाहिए.
Correct.
Then it's not, and we use the word moving the goalpost.
Right.
So
Right.
obviously you can't keep moving.
Right.
So you need a framework. So he came up with his own epistemology,
Okay.
which is as a epistemology, it is accepted by everybody, and there is no divergence there. But he just wanted to lay out the rules clearly. So this is of course beautifully explained by a person who came in a lineage called Jaitirtha. Jaitirtha Swamiji then brought up that thing called Prapana Paddhati, where he said that look, this is pramana, this is what is called proof, and that is also called the science of epistemology, which is what do you accept. So there he has clearly mentioned what he accepts as proof. So one of the best proof that you can have for anything is pratyaksha. That means it's evident, which is what science will have. It is, you can perceive with your senses, and it is either true or it's false. The other one is called anumana, which is by estimation or by hypothesis, right? So what it basically means is, where suppose you see smoke, there has to be fire. It's by inference.
Correct.
It has to be there.
Yeah.
The third one is called agama, which is the scriptures, which are the and he's defined what it means. It is the Vedas, it is the Upanishads, and it is all the Puranas which are in consonance with the Vedas and the Upanishads. So really the foundational tone he set it as Vedas. Now what I have seen is that both these forms are pursuing something. If you remove all the noise which is there, both of them are very honest in their attempt to reach the goal. I wouldn't like to falter one of them ki ye log dhurt hain, or they are saying, no, these guys are all magicians, they are trying to create something. I think that is not there, because I don't think they would have pursued it in that manner had that been the case.
Right.
So there is no ill intent on either side, and these can and should coexist.
Right.
So that is my framework. What would be your
This is I think we have discussed in past also in terms of basic view to look at science and spirituality. I am pretty much similar way I look at it. In fact, I think let me lead to something very interesting which I wanted to ask you. Our Rishis, if you look at it, we always take them as the masters who were the pioneers in technology and science. And they were also pioneers in the spiritual realm, both together, right? I am not aware, or I have not heard any kind of, either in references in scriptures or otherwise, that kind of a conflict or that type of dilemma in Rishis when they are leading to life normal way. They are doing their research, they are progressing their knowledge through meditation and through various things. Now in modern world, if you look at it, the amount of, I think the conflict or this kind of a segregation or divide between a scientific approach you have to pick up vis-a-vis you pick up a spiritual path at that, being almost looked at as like two different divergent, either you are this or you are that. Now it will be interesting to understand where on the path when it started, where there is everything aligned and Rishis never had this problem, and in today's day when we are sitting and you and I are debating that science or spirituality, why this divide? What are the kind of, I would say, historical pointers of past where this divide has become so stark, has become so, I would say, strong? What is your view? You think this has been because of certain historical event, or what is in the current time we are doing as a society, as a collective, human collective, because of which divide has become? What is driving this?
Yeah. So Rakesh, I think you put a very relevant question, and it was with that idea that I read a few books which talk about the history of evolution of science and philosophy.
Okay.
Right? And while I don't think I'll be able to quote with a date and a timeline perspective, because I really don't remember the dates, but I can bring out certain aspects which struck me, about this cusp. I think every time, so there is science and there is philosophy. whenever they have converged or whenever people have not taken them as separate things, that has led to a era of a lot of prosperity, right? It could be the times of many Mughal kings, looked at both these aspects and how they can, for example, take it forward. For example, look at the things that they have done in architecture, in metallurgy, right? They have tried their own hand at doing something in aviation. That's all this is in India. And also look at the scientific revolution which happened in in Europe. It is very hard to say, the people whom we consider as scientists, are you going to classify them as scientists or philosophers?
Right.
All of them, without exception, in those 200 years where there was peace, no wars, no recorded history of wars, but a period where art, science and philosophy came together, and it led to a lot of prosperity for Europe. And that was not the time they were attacking other countries and all of this. It was more organic growth of wealth that it gave all the European countries.
Right.
So this is the good part. Now coming to the times when these have deviated, have come because somebody on one side, now that we are talking about them as two different things, has used this to get power of some nature. So if, for example, people who have knowledge of the spiritual world have decided that, look, this can be my branding exercise.
Yeah.
Right, I'm a marketer, so this word branding comes.
Absolutely.
I need a brand. So what is that brand? I am a spiritual person. So if I do that, I can quickly cut the cake in that axis, saying the haves and the have-nots.
Correct.
So that is one. Then after some time, because none of these things are permanent, you can cut the cake this way today and tomorrow it will be a new cake, so you can cut it in another day. What happened was that the other side was just waiting to get back, saying, okay, now these are the guys whom we have to counter. So instead of the pendulum, the pendulum can't swing like this. The pendulum swings the other way. And only then after some time comes and stops in between. So this pendulum has swung the other side, where the people who are in science went on a rampage, saying that we have to destroy the past. Only then we can build a new future. So for example, look at people who wanted to just remove Sanskrit. Why? Because Sanskrit was the language of the spirituality for Hinduism. Or want to erase Persian and Urdu because that is the basis for Islam.
Correct.
So you just eliminate that.
It's connectivity. You just take it out.
Take it out. And so if you just connect that language, you disconnect the whole world which exists there.
Right.
It's like that San Francisco bridge, which connected the valley with the rest of the world.
Yes.
And why is that bridge so revered even now? Is because valley became what it is because of that bridge, and US became what it is because the valley got connected to it. Right. So that bridge, and some people call it the umbilical cord, actually was cut in those cases. So there are enough and more evidence on both sides to say that it was really the effort to gain that power and influence, and people who are power mongers, people who are wanting to create that kind of illicit wealth, they will grab whatever comes their way. So today it is science, tomorrow it could be religion, day after tomorrow it could be spirituality, whatever comes their mind. They don't really have any philosophy of their own. Very rarely have we seen that there is a very objective debate and discussion which has happened between the people who believe that there is science and we should only accept science the way it is, with all the honesty, and the other side. ये बहुत कम हुआ है. It's happened very, very few times.
Understand.
So I'm tempted to go into more examples of this, especially coming from Europe and what happened in the 12th and 14th century, 12th to 14th century in India. But I think maybe that's a topic by itself, and we could
definitely
unpeel it more.
And I think you touched upon a very, very powerful aspect of this, Sundar, which is essentially whether it's a spirituality or whether it's a science, people who could find instrument in that to get the power. So irrespective of science and irrespective of the spirituality, they had actually used those instruments and they have done their own agenda.
Yes.
And somewhere over past in history, if you look at through various different accounts, I think this is where it has created, you could look at that muddying of science has its own muddying of happening because what spiritual powers are doing to it, or otherwise you look at it when people who have power of science leveraging that power to be able to destroy or to be able to muddle up what is there in spirituality. Now, coming from that side, Sundar, often when you talk to people who are following a spiritual path or into that path, even modern times, you will see one complaint from their side onto two hyper scientific mindset happening, saying increasingly what is happening that the world over, the tendency for consumption, tendency for material experiences. So while we say that we are becoming more and more scientifically oriented, more scientific advancement, so in the name of development and advancement, we are doing so many things, right? But on the other side, the markers that we see, you look at it, the way societies are becoming, the way if you look at even health perspective, if you look at it, the way the markers are happening. I mean, you leave aside longevity of life, because every time I have seen the debate, people always say, look, we are living longer. But living longer is just one thing. Look at the quality of life. Look at the quality of the health. So the whole rise, which is you are seeing, which I am finding it really unprecedented. I mean, look at it in the modern times, the whole material consumption. Are we using science more and more to divert its power towards us, our experiences, our selfish goals? And in that path somewhere, the true, I think the pursuit of truth which could have happened through the science, that is getting somewhere sidelined. And power of science is like, it's like a gun, right? You're using and turn the entire gun towards the objectives which are not necessarily in the path of pursuit the truth. This is how my experience is saying, if there is a diversion happening, if there are deterioration happening or the conflict rising, it is because the purposes towards which the science, and to some extent I will also put now in modern time, even the spiritual forces, or rather not the true spiritual forces, but I would say the spiritual entertainment, the way it is being done, it is all diverting towards individuals, their own selfish goals or their selfish fulfillment of their desires. Where do you see this going? What is your perspective in terms of how this whole science and thing in the modern world, where do we stand? What is your way?
So I think, Rakesh, it goes back to the point I said. I think the people who wanted to gain that power, right? And in this case, it could be power through wealth, will again go out there and, pursue any path that comes. But today, if they can exploit science, so be it. If they can exploit, chalo ye kaam nahi kiya, let's do, spirituality. Yeah. There are enough number of people who had corporate careers, who gave it up because somewhere there, they feel or they felt that, this is not my calling. I should be doing something else. Right. But very soon, they end up doing the same thing as what they would have done as a brand manager for a toothpaste.
Right.
And that is what I started my career. I was a brand manager for Close-Up. So the strategies that I would use then was, now I can see the similarities between, the way they exploit spirituality. Everything becomes a franchise.
Right.
There is a branding, there's a merchandising on everything that you do. Right. So it is no different. Right. And the people who are driving many of these spiritual organizations are hard-coded marketers. Wow. Right? Because they think exactly. I wouldn't like to take names here, but in the organizations that I've worked and drawn up the digital marketing roadmap for these companies, it is no different. It is exactly the same thing. Everything has a revenue goals, everything has a subscription goals, everything has its own social media acceptance, like likes, dislikes, comments and stuff like that. But ultimately, the reality is, what is the money that they are able to generate of this?
It's the same template.
It's the same template. I don't even change the presentation. I can just change the logo and then present and it will work. It has worked. And I'm not saying this with happiness. I'm actually saying it with a bit of a pain because the organizations themselves have set out on a spiritual goal. At least the toothpaste is honest enough to say, I'm going to sell you toothpaste.
Right.
So I think, Rakesh, one point that we have to remember is that when anything starts, I believe it starts with a pure intent, right? A scientist, Thomas Alva Edison, did not want to make GE multi-billion-dollar company. That's definitely not. He wouldn't have been able to do what he did had he thought on those lines. He might have thought, okay, let me create a lot of things with which I can, I can solve a lot of problems. That was there. You look at many of the technology companies which started, and we know the story of how they all started. They all started with a fairly pure intent.
Correct.
Saying, why are we suffering with so much of this? Why can't we use technology for this? And so on and so forth. But today, the same people who were, those people wearing hoodies in, Ivy League schools have become sharks. And it's evident in the products that they have made, which is basically built to virtually hook people and destroy their intelligence, right? I was just recounting another incident in my previous Thoughtcast. The founder of a company, very famous OTT company, said, they asked him, who is your biggest competitor? And this is one of the largest OTTs. So he said, my biggest competitor is sleep. So my point is, how do I take away that sleep? Because more people sleep, more less of the channel.
Right.
So this is there, that it starts with a pure intent, and it was never the idea of doing it. But then I think very few people are able to draw that line and say, look, we've done this much, and if it has got certain malified intentions, and it is going in that direction, we kill that movement, or we are able to control it. And that is where I think the element of that a person who is spiritually inclined, the moral compass is very correct in people who are truly spiritual. If that is not the case, they will never be able to draw the line.
True. And one thing I completely agree with you, Sundar. I think in the entire scheme of things, beyond the debates of science and spirituality, the point that you touched upon, at the end of the day, the intent that you're talking about, no matter which matter, whether it's a politics, whether it's a science, whether it's a corporate, I think the intent that you have inside, it manifests everywhere, whatever you're going to do that. Beyond the words, I mean, you may have good logo, you may have good, nice colors, and you have nice pictures you put it. But as a leader or as the owner of a thought or a particular institution, the intent with which you are driving your actions, ultimately they will reflect into the relationship with respect to the universe, with the people, everywhere. And this is where, as you said, the person with the wrong intent, he could be in a path in spirituality, he will end up delivering something which you are not going to like. Same with somebody who could be very sharp scientific mind. And always I give this example. When from the universe we received this invention of nuclear energy, what is the first formal product from nuclear energy we have? We're talking about nuclear bomb. I mean, this is what the first deployment you did it. So as a humanity, that risk we always have, that when we receive power, when we receive any kind of this type of special knowledge, we have to safeguard that whether our intents are deploying this knowledge and this insight into for purposes which are finally, as you said, going to take away from what is good or what is really desired for humanity. Now that brings me to, if I were to talk about coexistence in that, because ultimately this is what we are here for. We are looking at, in real scenario, science and spirituality, there are two lenses through which we are trying to look at things, but behind the scene it's all same. The reality is the same. It's just the lens how you're looking at differently. But when we talk about science today, science asks for the evidence. Science is asking observability. Science is saying, I can't see it, I can't recognize it, then for me it doesn't matter. I mean, your spirituality, nice, as you say, philosophy, but in the real terms, I can't really have anything material do that. When you go on to the spiritual side, for them, science is more of a tool, a utility. It is able to do for your living day-to-day life, but if it cannot answer the question about who am I, it can't answer the question where we are leading as the collective human society or as the existence of human being. What is beyond, as you say, the infinity or ananta we're talking about. Science recognizes that as merely as a concept you can put in formulas, but science is not able to interpret and tell you that what do you really mean as in something which is infinite, right? So because of this diverse thing, ultimately, both of these sides are not seeing today eye to eye each other because they are stuck onto their zone of understanding what they are looking for. Now, in such a situation, where science is not able to explain the spirituality or able to concept of what we are describing is spirituality. If you have to bring it together, do you think there is an approach which allows us to, if I have a scientific mind, for me to delve into spirituality with an objectivity which doesn't create a repulsive force for me? And at the same time, if I'm a person with a lot more spiritual intent or that kind of a mindset, I'm able to see the perspective, or I'm able to leverage the science for my better pursuit of my spiritual thing. So leverage it this as a tool, not see it as a something which is conflict. Do you think there is an approach? And reason I'm asking Sundar, because as I said, in times when we believe with the masters, Rishis were there, this conflict did not exist, which also means that must have been an approach, there must have been a mechanism that they have used to be able to ensure that these two go hand in hand, enriching our life in a way that as a step by step we are moving forward, we are doing a meaningful evolution of our own self. So today, we may not have access to those masters, but from whatever knowledge you have, Sundar, and whatever you might be aware of, are you able to share that there are approaches that can allow us to converge in a meaningful way?
Oh yes, for sure, it is possible. But before I start on that, Rakesh, I think the way I would like to put it is, how much more welcoming should the spiritual world be towards people like you who are making that honest attempt, right? So I think for the first thing, I think it is definitely possible. And how do I say this? Is that, right now I'm studying a text called the Vishnu Tattva Vinirnaya. Mm-hmm. This is one of the commentaries of Madhwacharya, and it is a sort of a lead up to the studies of the Brahma Sutras and the Brahma Sutra Bhashya. If I go by that, and I have underlined many places where they have talked about any scientific topics without calling them science. So I'll give you an example. For example, the mention of sound waves. This book and the commentary on that, the book itself is written in the 12th century. And Srimad Jayatirtha, who is the person who wrote the commentary, was about 100 and 120 years after that. So in the 13th century. So the concept of the sound waves, and in a context, I will not get into the context right now, but if you just look at it, sound as waves traveling in something like Tarangini. That means, how did they know about waves? Because I was curious and I couldn't wait till the class was over, because I ran and started searching where did sound started getting recognized as a wave. So wave kahan se aa gaya? So that concept is mentioned in a passing. It's just there. That means it existed as something which not only Jayatirtha as a proponent of Dvaita said it, even Advaita accepted it. That there is sound wave. Uska treatment ke upar nahi jate hain. Right. Nobody contested that what is the word that you have used there. This doesn't exist. Because they do contest things like that. Right. That it may be acceptable to you, dude. I am not accepting it. That happens. But in this case, it has not happened. That means it was a fairly well-known fact that sound travels through waves. And I can't tell you, this happened about a year back, and I can still, find that goosebumps on me. Now, like this, obviously, whenever I find something like this, which I can isolate as a topic, I have made a laundry list of many of these topics. Okay. Bhugola, the word itself. The Bhugol, the earth is round. And poor little Galileo had to be killed because he said it was flat. And you keep on walking, and that's why they didn't want to travel too far, because they felt the earth was like a plate. And if you keep on going, one day you'll just fall off the precipice. Right? But these things did not exist at all. The fact that there was a solar system, the fact that there was a gravitational pull, the fact that the planets go around the sun and not anything else, and not the other way around. All these things, and I don't fault anybody with having had a different opinion, because probably their current level of understanding was that. But the important thing to know is that Indian scriptures, which I am talking about, let's not get into the Puranas, because they are even older. I'm just talking about 12th century, which is round. And this is a written document, which is there since then, because commentators who came at that time have written commentaries on this. That means they couldn't have written it later. Right. So with that, what came in Europe in the 16th and the 17th century was as a matter of debate, was a very well established truth in the way that was treated. In fact, that is used as a way to prove spiritual topics.
Okay.
Right? That is the basis.
Okay.
So if you just look at this whole concept, I'm just giving you one thing. A convergence is definitely possible. But what is important, as I said, is you start with an open mind. And I've said it 108 times, and I'll say it once more, is that all our scriptures are based on a structure of question and answers. It is a question which is answered, and the listener is not any way bound, and you can see that no, if you say like this, then how does this work? There is a counter question, and so on and so on. The whole thing almost moves like a wave, like a spiral.
It's exploration, essentially.
It's exploration. And look at one of the greatest texts of the Sanatana Dharma. It is the Brahma Sutras. And what is the first Brahma Sutra? Om Athato Brahma Jignasa Om. Brahma के ऊपर जिज्ञासा कीजिए. जिज्ञासा है. It is, you can come to the conclusion Brahma doesn't exist. God as an entity does not exist. That also is an acceptable outcome. But jignasa to karo. Right. You can say, you can define it in any part of the spectrum according to the path that you take. But the fact is, there is a jignasa. There is a question. In fact, all the Upanishads, all the Puranas, all of them are, some Jnani is giving answers. Somebody asks a question. There is an Upanishad called Shat Prashna Upanishad. 6 questions, Shat Prashna. So, uska naam hi Shat Prashna. Another is called Kena Upanishad. So, it starts with Kena. So, it is always a set, I am so delighted every time today my lessons are not there because we're recording it. I'm really missing that lesson, because I'm telling you, spiritual studies have the same amount of magnetism and the same amount of thrill which is there in a spy, spy novel.
Yeah.
Sometimes what happens is, in our classes, there is a question and there is an answer. Sometimes the explanation of the question itself is very elaborate, and उसमें 1 घंटा हो जाता है. And my teacher says, I think we will come to the answer tomorrow. I'm almost like a kid, saying, no, I want it right now. I have not felt like that about anything else.
Right.
Many people are complaining nowadays that OTT, when they release their episodes, they are not doing it together. And that's a big complaint. I have a bigger complaint with my teacher, because he's not releasing all the episodes at the same time. But it has got that thrill. So I think, coming back to your question, I think there is definite possibility. But the important thing is, both the teacher and the student has to come up with a lot of openness. So they say, many people say, when we are attending your workshops or when we are attending these sessions, what is the dress code? I said, you have to come with an open mind. That is compulsory. Everything else is option.
Correct.
Do you think I can come in shorts? Look, that is not the attire for a spiritual pursuit. But if that makes you fine, do it. Right?
No, this is very true, Sundar. In fact, I just want to share with you this whole open mind thing you talked about, right? To me, again, getting to the stage where you can have the open mind has been a very important milestone. I can look back probably my college days and young days, even though somewhere I was looking for answers, but I think from a mindset perspective, still I had fixed notion. So from a scientific standpoint, if you have a fixed judgmental calls already taken in your head, and all you are discussing to get to that point, then you will not able to see, as I said, this suspense and this joy of exploration. You will never have that. And I went through that journey. I saw it will turn into frustration, because when you are discussing, debating, you already have the end goal in your mind fixed, and you are trying to prove a point. When you're trying to prove a point, you will not see the truth. You will not see. I think that journey where I had to let go, ultimately realize that mistake I'm making, where on one side, I'm intending to explore, intending to find out. But on the other end, I have fixed notion that I have put my head, and with that, I'm trying to build a picture. Then I will never able to see that. The moment you let that go, and where you say, okay, look, it doesn't matter, it's all right. It finally may not be what others want to hear or I want to hear. But if I want to take a next step and find that mystery and find where it is, I have to be open.
Yes.
See, if there are doors and I'm not willing to open that door and I'm sitting out here, then you are only seeing the door. You can't see what is beyond the door.
Exactly.
So that is, I fully agree with you. I think that openness, I think spirituality and science, this one thing which I like to say, science is for experimentation. Science is starting with a hypothesis, conduct your experiment, and very strikingly, if you look at it, the way Rishis look at the inquiry into the spirituality, they do not ask you to abide by any of the thing which is being, as you said, that jigyasa, which is starting from there. And it is saying you start with, don't close the door. If you are a science person, don't say this does not exist because I cannot see it.
Yeah.
You just say, I am not able to see it. I don't know what it is, but can I take one step to find out about it? If you are a spiritual guy, then you are saying science is like this, is of no use or cannot do it thing. If you don't know enough about it, figure it out, because some point in time we will know enough about it, right? Now, from that angle, Sundar, when we talk about science and spirituality, as you said, there is definitely that approach can be taken. There is approach available with that. Now, from a science perspective where we cannot explain spirituality, we are not able to give an answer about that part. If I were to use so-called logical frame of mind, rationality in the science, because that's what science is known for, right? You are rational about everything. Everything has to have a reason, evidence, everything. While spirituality doesn't demand, it allows you to have that openness, but do that. But when I'm onto the path of spirituality, one of the dangers which most of the time you'll hear, Sundar, is about how do I trust the experiences I'm having in spirituality. It could be my own imagination. It could be my own, I don't know, biological conditioning, which is letting me to see things, believe things. And because it is not really scientific, either I trust it or I let it go. Now, in this kind of a situation, do you think, given that science has its own limitation, how do we use rationality? How do we use logical thinking? How do we use critical thinking, which has its own boundary also, to how far it can go? But can that be used to make sure that the path I'm taking in my spiritual journey, I'm able to make progress, I'm able to move forward? How do we bring that together in that?
Yeah. So Rakesh, I think you bring up a question that we've got many times in our from our audience, saying, how do I know I'm on the right path? So today, I think, in the world of GPS, you get to know, because you are going on a path and it's a physical path. But the world of spirituality can be very tricky, right? So I think the first thing is, what I have seen with my experiences is, when you are moving from one topic to the other topic in your pursuit of your studies, it could be reading a book, attending a class, or your own thinking. If you are able to move from one topic to the other seamlessly, this is called aprayatna purvaka, and without any hassles,
right,
without any frictionless movement from one topic to the other. That means you are on the path. Otherwise, you will get stuck. Because it's like, to give an example, I say that, look, when you are coming to my place, on the right side you will find a very nice a big building, and then you say, no, but I'm in the middle of a paddy field. Then we know that we're totally off. So I think what I have seen is, when somebody is on that path, it becomes easier for that person to move from one area to the other very, very logically, without somewhere there, let us assume that our physics lessons have been very systematically aligned. And I believe that, because it has been tested over so long. And I also have a good teacher, and it becomes my favorite subject, because so somewhere there, if you start enjoying it, at the same time you're able to move from one area to the other frictionless. Now, by frictionless, it is not meant that you have not got any questions. You got those questions, but they are getting resolved in your mind, without you feeling the impact that somebody is trying to shove something down your throat. Here is where there is one aspect of intelligence, which I read in a totally different context, which is that if a person has got higher intelligence, one of the hallmarks of that person is that he has beliefs, he has understood a lot of things, but he also believes that there can be another way of looking at it. There can be, not that he understands it, but ye bhi ho sakta hai. It is a possibility. Right. So if he even recognizes that there is another possibility, then he's a truly intelligent person. Otherwise, somewhere there his intelligence is limited to a unilateral direction. वो उसी पे चल रहा है, enjoying, वो अपने मस्त है अपने pursuit में. But the moment he says that, by the way, can it also be like this? He says, no, it can't be like that. Because this is it's literally saying it's my way or the highway.
Right, right.
So this, intelligence is some aspect which sort of comes to my mind. The second thing, I think it is a useful framework which my Guruji, Prabhanjanacharya, gave. He said, read everything in the Shastras with an assumption that it is wrong.
Oh.
It was
Interesting.
we took a few minutes to digest this because we've always thought that the Shastras ultimate and उसी को लेना है. अगर नहीं आया तो तुम्हारा problem है.
Right.
You go solve it.
Right.
Everybody has studied it, everybody accepted it. It is no reason for you to accept it actually. Right? Although I would be curious that so many people have accepted it. Where is my point of departure coming? And I like to isolate it and solve it rather than just brand the whole lot of them saying they did nothing.
Right.
So I think that aspect was very interesting to me. And he said it in a context, but it stayed with me. So every day when I've got my gurus, Dr. Bayari as well as Srinidhi Acharpati, who also for some reason have come into this path of saying that whatever is written is wrong. So for example, when there is a debate between Advaita and Dvaita, the spirit and the passion with which they talk about Advaita is the same as what they talk about Dvaita.
Okay.
As though it is a scholar of Advaita who is speaking. I'm just giving you one example of somebody who can accept, has accepted the other form as a valid question.
So they're not stuck with one.
They're not stuck with that. It's a valid question. If that is not a valid question, why are you spending hours and days and years of your life refuting something?
Right.
Hey, validity question nahi hai. Galat hai wo.
Correct.
Syntax error hai. So just leave it, abandon it. That is not how the Shastras are looking. Now, why is it that all these people have this in common? Is the fact that is the base. It goes back to our structure of the Vedas and the Shastras, which have all been written in the form of a debate. It's a continuum. It is not ending tomorrow. On 30th of June, it is not going to be decided that this form of philosophy is the right one and others can just, do what they want.
Right.
It is, they say, and I'll tell you one more incident which happened. It was again I was very young, I was about 17, 18 years of age. And there were the students from the Purna Prajna Vidyapitha who used to come home to help us do some puja. They were the pujaris for different pujas that we did, like Ganesh Puja. They used to come. And my father asked him a very provocative question. They said, look, you've studied different forms of philosophy. And do you really believe that, the Dvaita philosophy is actually the right philosophy? Do you believe that? And these students were at the fag end of their studies. So the very senior students, in a year they will graduate. So the answer that they gave, I was in my room and I could hear what they were saying. And I got very curious and I came to the door and the answer they gave were fantastic. They said, so far of the different schools of philosophy we have studied, Dvaita sounds the most convincing.
Okay.
And my father asked a follow-up question. Knowing my father, he was used to asking such provocative questions. He said, tomorrow, let us say there is a new, school which comes up with different thinking. How will you view that school? He said, we should evaluate it. Let's see. Maybe they're right. We want the best.
Correct.
So they just use the word, they want the best, and they were speaking Kannada, but they stopped. But I think that gave me a very good frame of mind. That yes, this has to be studied with understanding. There is no different from my chemistry lab that I'm doing. It goes by very, very similar rules. I think the people who have not and who are not able to see the convergence have artificially drawn boundaries only to serve the purposes that we started talking about. So if this is if one pursues this with an open mind, I think it will that's what the Upanishads and the Vedas always say, that let light come from all sides.
Yes.
Tejasvinavadhitam. When he says that you are the student, I am a teacher, how lovely it has been for us to sort of work together. And I have taught you, you have learnt it with an open mind, and you didn't like it, or I'm not able to answer some of your questions. Let us both go to a third master. Now, how many people, if this is the way a teacher and student relationship is, where is the question of being dogmatic?
True. No, I agree. And I think we have been consistently now talking about this openness, Sundar, which emerges as, I think, one of the most important learning if ever we are to talk about bringing these together. Because whether you want to learn science also, or whether you want to learn spirituality, ultimately, if you start with a concept or a notion which is fixed in your head, then both places you'll fail.
Yes.
So if you have to bring them together, the common to both of them is really this openness, saying, yes, this is what I know. There's a lot I don't know.
Yes.
And the approach to don't know is always, let's see. Let's see what is there. You start taking first step, start seeing it there. So I think that first step is about, I think if I were to look at it for today's conversation, I think this is a very big takeaway for us to recognize that irrespective which camp you are in, if you are to progress and you want to change the camp and look at what is somebody else's camp, both of them that requires this openness.
Yes.
That is the minimum requisite is there, because without that no progress can happen. And I think if you were to go down, I think this is the endless topic, Sundar. It cannot be done in such a short setting. So what I am expecting, I think we need to probably have a sequel of this conversation. Yes. And I would like to you to conclude with your understanding. What do you think? What is the summary of this session?
No, today? I think it's. I will not summarize this session, Rakesh. It was very interesting because you summarize only when something is concluded.
Agree.
I think the key takeaway, as you rightly said, was this thing about openness, and I think this trying to overcome the dogma is central to our understanding of either science or So even when new things were introduced in science, it is not that the people at that time did not oppose it. Of course, people got killed. An entire generation got wiped out because somebody said something that was different from what the people before that has felt. So I think this openness and this, I will say that we'll have to cultivate this because it's not natural. If it was so natural, then I think you and I wouldn't have had to, debate or even discuss this, right? So I think sequel to isme bilkul banta hai, and we have actually created a lot of resources which are dealing with some of these topics. So it is available on our YouTube channel. So for the viewers, this is the Ataha Madhwacharya for the Youth YouTube channel that you're watching this program on. At the end of this video, you will find access to our Instagram channel. You can go there and you will find short bite-sized inputs that we're giving on different aspects of spirituality. We also have a channel which is on YouTube, which is on talking about the past videos that we have created. More than 100 such videos are already available. So you need to check in the two sections, which is videos, as well as there is something called live, because those were live sessions which have now got saved as videos. So those playlists are also available. And on fairly popular demand, we started a live series which happens on the 1st, 3rd and the 5th Saturday of every month. That is on different topics on spirituality, personality development, etc. So you can come there, you can register for that program. It's totally free of cost. And of course, with the cost you have to pay is come with an open mind and interact with us. There's also the mention of the email ID. If you have any questions, suggestions, please do put it over there and we will try and answer it, or we'll get an expert on the topic to answer this. And please leave comments on this video because your comments are very, very valuable to us, because we want to know how this content has landed and what are the further questions that we have. So let us conclude this program with the first Brahma Sutra, which is Om Athato Brahma Jignasa Om, which is let us keep that curiosity and jignasa alive in all of us.
Thank you,
Thank you so much, Rakesh. Thank you.